Great to be here and great to be able to present our progress on the UBC School of Biomedical Engineering to you today. Um, Everyone knows the site of the project. It's a really great place for a new school like the School of Biomedical Engineering at the heart of the university. It's close to a great number of student amenities to the north and the health sciences, and it's a wonderful courtyard system to the south, and really being kind of between these two urban conditions is fundamental to the design of the building. And also fundamental to the design of the building was this discovery that we made when we first visited the site, that on the south side of the building are these wonderful existing London plane trees. And preserving these trees really became a prime objective to the project, and you can see them on the diagram here. And they really ended up defining the south side of the building. And not only were they important as a potential amenity for the project, but also important as a way of preserving the kind of history of the pedestrian courtyards and the kind of delight of finding them and discovering them as we did as you wind your way through that part of the campus. Of course, the north side of the building is defined by University Boulevard, and campus and community planning a goal to make this a high street for the university, and has successfully done that so far on the north side of the street, and now the south side is beginning to emerge. And the one other thing that objective of the campus and community planning is this notion of extending Athletes Way. A major pedestrian route on the north side of the site is now going to be extended across the University Boulevard and through the site of our project. And of course, that naturally divides the site into two, with one portion of the site being available for future projects and the remainder being for the SBME. We also made an effort to preserve other significant trees on the site, and they became useful in creating smaller scale urban places. So this great Atlas cedar tree kind of marks the spot where you cross the street and continue Athletes Way. We worked to create a kind of small pocket park here, and Joe and Tatiana will describe that in some detail next to a really beautiful oak tree. And there's a really lovely pine tree here that will be a wonderful view for people in the administration area. And the response to all of these different conditions really led to a kind of unique geometry for the SBME, and is really kind of fundamental in the planning of the project. The organization of the building is very much a product of its program. And the program is interesting for a university building because it combines both research and learning spaces. Usually these tend to be set aside in different buildings. With the SBME, they'll be combined. And naturally, we arrange them about two different common spaces. And so the learning spaces, some big lecture halls and studios and maker spaces, are arranged around a lower common space that's connected to the plain courtyard. And above, the research labs and faculty offices are off of the upper common space. And the bottom of the upper common space is a kind of mixture of both, with some teaching labs, services for the research labs, and innovative rooms for innovation, some project rooms. So that floor is kind of where things mix together. And the combination of all these really forms the core of the SBME. The upper floors of the building were really designed with the idea of trying to create a research community. And I'm just going to move this guy out of the way here. A research community. And so the labs are located on the north side of the building, where they benefit from natural light on the north side of the building. And the south side of the building, we have offices, and in between there's a common space, a kind of space for collaboration for people in the building. And as we descend down the building to the second level, you can see that the building expands to include this wing, and this wing was a natural place to put things like administration and other back of house functions. Moving down the building, we have lecture halls, studios, maker spaces, and so on, all connected off of the lower common space. Let's spend a bit of time now looking at the lower, the ground floor plan and its connections to the urban environment. On the north side, sorry, I have to move all the little video faces out of the way here so I can point to things. There we go. So the north side of the building really tries to build on this notion of a high street on University Boulevard, and we have a generous bench and a canopy that extends the full width of the building, creating a wonderful outdoor space for pedestrians. There's also a bus stop here, and we envision that on the rainier days, people will make full use of this canopy while they're waiting for the bus. In addition to that, we've located some of the most interesting spaces of the SBME right on the ground floor so that the University Boulevard is activated by studios and maker spaces. The main entrance for the SBME is located logically off of the intersection of Athletes Way and University Boulevard. And as you walk through that entrance, you'll get a view of the trunks of all those lovely plane trees. And of course, we're right next to the Atlas cedar tree as well. On the other side of the building is this, what I referred to earlier as a pocket park. There are currently 2 commercial retail units in the Strangway building, and we're trying to build a little community of retail units by adding another one here on the corner of the SBME. And we're preserving a beautiful oak tree here, and Joe and Tatiana have some really nice ideas for landscaping this area as well. We have 2 stairs that run the entire height of the building. They're generous stairs and will act as public stairs for the building as well as exits. And they'll form kind of secondary entrances in and out of the building as well. Also, the stairs are glazed and they're fully glazed at the bottom, so they'll help provide eyes on the street in these areas, which are just a little bit less public than the main areas of the building. There's, of course, a service area for the building, and that service area is well screened from public space, both by the pine tree that I mentioned earlier, as well as some generous landscaping here, and similarly the landscaping I mentioned here as well too. And so our loading dock is here, as well as a generator and substation. All those things are kept behind house. And then at grade around this courtyard, we have cut away the building to kind of encourage people to turn the corner and begin walking in the direction of the grid, the urban grid of the health precinct. And we've cut away the building here to kind of create a strong connection between the plane trees, the courtyard, and the public space within the building. And then on the east side of the building, we have a very quiet brick wall that just brings you into the building in a way that's characteristic to a lot of the beautiful modernist buildings on the university. Here's a look at our north elevation, and one of the key objectives of this elevation was providing visibility to the labs, which benefit from the north light on the inside, and on the outside they're really kind of emblematic of the vision of the SBME. The cladding is full height glazing, and we have added some vertical fins to these glazing, about 300 millimeter in depth, and these will provide texture on the glazing, but also animate it with sunlight. As the sunlight comes around to this side of the building, you can get a bit of a sense of it on this elevation here. The sun will pick up those fins and help create a ever-changing experience for people looking at the building. The fins go from the top of the building through this mechanical penthouse, down through all the labs, and then they fold out to form the canopy. So they really help to unify this facade. And one of the concerns we had of the building was it's quite a big, chunky, massive building. And so what we tried to do at the edges of the building is erode away the massing a little. And so the top of the building is cut away. And at the bottom of the building, we have kind of double height spaces to demarc the entrance to the commercial retail unit and to, of course, to the main building. And so that way the building does not feel quite so imposing as you walk around the corners of it. The streetscape, as mentioned earlier, is animated by the pocket park, by the retail, by studios, maker spaces, the entrance to the SBME, and bookended on either end by these beautiful existing trees. And Joe and Tatiana will talk a little bit about this big bench that creates an outdoor space for pedestrians. One of the concerns with putting learning spaces on the street is the issue of a fishbowl effect. And so this bench, along with a change in level and some depth between the sidewalk and those spaces, helps to mitigate that fishbowl effect within those spaces. With the south elevation, really the focus is on the plane trees, and we've tried to make the building quiet and reticent and be kind of in the background. Cladding the entire south facade are screens, grills with both horizontal and vertical components. And the reason for this is that although I called it the south facade, it's actually a south and a south-southeast facade. So providing solar protection with both horizontal and vertical components will help deal with that. And we have on board our team, we have someone who will be looking at this from a more scientific perspective and helping us ensure that the appropriate issues are taken with regard to the sun. As mentioned earlier, here's where we're cutting away the mass of the building to create a nice interface between the public space of the courtyard and the common space within the building. And here's that quiet wall, brick wall that I mentioned earlier as well. Just a quick outline of some of the things that we're doing for sustainability and a big picture point of view. The building, as you probably noticed, is chunky. A more accurate description would be that it has not a lot of envelope for the size of the building, which is good from an environmental point of view. Also, as mentioned, we're preserving specimen trees. We've put a lot of effort into protecting the glass from solar heat gain, first off with orientation, and second off with screens, fins, and that kind of stuff. We have thought carefully about daylighting, both by locating the program strategically where it can best make use of daylight, large windows on the north side to provide diffuse daylight in those lab spaces. We have filtered sunlight on the south, and the common spaces that I talked about a few minutes ago are lit both from the top and from the side. Flexibility and changeability is a big issue with lab design, and both our offices and our lab spaces are designed with a module that encourages or facilitates change over time in a very simple way, both with furniture or with more significant changes. We have I call it a deep technical response to energy use with a lab. A lab is a very technical building. And so our consultants, both Brad and Kenneth, are with us here today, and they've put a lot of work into developing systems within the building that minimize the use of energy. And if you have questions about those, I would direct them to them. And finally, we will be looking, of course, at sustainable finishes, green lab strategies, and bird-friendly design, which is off to a good start as we move forward. So what I'd like to do now is pass things on to Luke. He'll give you a quick tour of the building in 3 dimensions, and that will help you get a better sense of the building in its context.
Okay, so here we're approaching the SBME from the east. We're greeted by the existing oak tree that sits in the pocket park and provides spill out space for the CRU on the corner here. As we move closer to the building, you can see the fins along the north facade that wrap down and fold out to form the canopy. So the canopy provides weather protection for pedestrians walking along the street, as well as for people waiting for the bus, as there are a number of bus stops in front of the SBME here. Beneath the canopy, we have 2 studio spaces in this area here, and 2 maker spaces. So these would be really active spaces, really engaging and communicating what the SBME is all about with the wider community. As we move around, you can see the transparency of the facade increases, so you have a really clear view up into the labs. You can see what's going on in the spaces above the street. Moving along to the entrance on the corner, we have a double height cutout that emphasizes the entrance and provides a setback and welcomes you into the building with a series of wood ceilings that step down towards the lower common space. And on the right here, we have the continuation of Athletes Way with a staircase that projects from the end of the building and provides some surveillance over this area here. In this model, we're also showing a potential future form for the neighbor. Moving back to the north side of the street, this is a view from between the 2 student residences, looking south towards the SBME with the entrance here and the continuation of Athletes Way along the west of the building. So on the corner next to the front entrance, we have the existing Atlas cedar tree, which we're retaining. And then moving through onto Athletes Way, we have a series of doors and windows looking into the staircase and provides you with a glimpse into the building and the lower common space. Moving to the corner, we have one of the classroom spaces, and you begin to get a glimpse into the south courtyard. As we move around, we're now looking down the walkway. So the building extends over and provides a covered walkway. And here we have the 5 existing London plane trees with a bench running underneath. Now moving up into the south courtyard, the existing south courtyard, and we can see the extension of the building to the south here, which contains the back of house and admin spaces. On top of that area, there is a roof terrace, and that provides a space for the SBME community to spill out onto in the summer months, and is directly next to the lunch space. Here we have the main facade treatment, which is the mesh screens. These provide the solar shading for the office spaces and bird protection. And above, we have these impressive forms that project above the line of the south facade. And these are the elements that sit above the voids that run down through the upper common spaces, allowing light deep into the building. We're proposing a number of new trees around the courtyard with a series of benches and outdoor spaces. And that completes the tour. I think we're handing over to Harper now for the landscape.
Thank you both. Just if we could, I don't want to shortchange the landscape presentation, but we do have some questions and answers that we need to address before our next presentation. So if you could keep it shorter, and then as needed through the questions, maybe any landscape questions can come up. Thanks, Tatiana.
So for the landscape, I would just skim through quickly then the design principles. We were just looking to connect the site to the existing circulation flows. So thinking about that extension on Athletes Way that Greg already talked about, as well as the connections to the open spaces on the medical precinct. We're also taking into consideration the larger planning for U Boulevard and the consultation with Musqueam happening at the moment. As Greg mentioned as well, we're hoping to protect and enhance the existing trees on the site that the architecture proposal was able to maintain. And also thinking about areas that are going to be permanent on site, as well as the more flexible program, like the area to the west, where there will be eventually a development constructed. And then just thinking about these ideas of the porch at the entry on U Boulevard, but the backyard at the back with these really beautiful London plane trees, and having a more intimate space, as well as connecting, especially at the CRU, and building entrances and having that indoor and outdoor movement. We're also considering storm water and how grading leads storm water through the site, and as well as the grading constraints. So just in terms of the landscape principles themselves, we are enhancing those existing conditions of those mature trees. We're also providing different kinds of sitting arrangements for groups as well as individuals. We're maintaining a clarity of pathways for the site, also promoting a sense of invitation, especially at the CRU entrances, creating a sense of gateway as this entrance to campus that also works with the University Boulevard larger planning scheme, and thinking about accessibility as it's been a concern on campus to provide the best and accessible environment for everyone. So this is the landscape site. So as Greg mentioned, along U Boulevard, we have this pocket park where the CRUs are on both sides. So we have this bench that envelops the mature oak tree here, and we're proposing 2 new trees as well. And then we have this larger bench running along U Boulevard, along the facade of the building, and it just follows the slope of University Boulevard. And on the west, we have the Atlas Cedar, where we have a seating that envelops both U Boulevard and goes along the Athletes Way extension so that students can sit and be close to the building entrance. And as we follow this extension of Athletes Way, it's the larger space at the back where we have the south courtyard. So we are creating this larger bench that envelops these mature London plane trees, and we'll have renderings showing some details of it. And the accessible pathway runs along the building on the east side. So this is just an overlook of the trees that we are proposing. So we are removing 14 trees, but we're proposing 17, mostly Acer sursinatum, so vine maple, as well as cherry along the east side of the building. And in terms of understory, we're just proposing for now northwest Pacific plants that will be in consultation also with Musqueam to determine which plants are relevant to their culture, especially for University Boulevard. But for now, yeah, we're just showing deer fern, salao, snowberry, huckleberry at the moment. And this is just an overlook at the lighting plan. So we're just introducing lighting at the main pathways. So mostly along the Athletes Way extension. And we're planning to have a couple of trees just downlighting on the London plane trees to have moonlighting at the back, and just a couple of other lights along the pathways here at the back. And this is just some precedent images and some images from the site. So here we just have some renderings of these spaces. So these are just the existing streetscape conditions that we are considering and keeping in mind. And this is the CRU pocket park. So we have that large oak tree being enveloped by the bench. And this is just a view from the Strangway building. This is the bench that runs along the building facade. So we have 1.5 meters to the University Boulevard side that is covered, so students can walk along that bench and still be under the canopy. And there's also a pathway next to the building. And just some views of the back. We did a couple of studies to protect these London plane trees of different options of what this could look like. And it ranged from it being completely a deck to having planted areas to stop movement from students who would inevitably probably walk on top of the structures. But this is the profile that we ended up deciding on, having this lounge chair shape running alongside the south side of the courtyard, and this curved profile facing the building. And it was important also for us to consider the view from the interior. So these are just further studies, and the view with planting was the one that seemed to really appeal to everyone. So we did some studies as to how that bench could incorporate both that profile, but also planting. And this is what we have so far.